Today on Locked On Rockies, I appeared on friend of the show's Evan Lang and Skylar Timmons' podcast, Affected by Altitude, and we had a really good conversation, and I wanted to bring it over here just in case if you missed it, because in reality, you, the Rockies fan, deserves a lot more transparency and communication from the front office.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 30th day of October in the year 2023. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, is talk about the Colorado Rockies right here on your favorite streaming service and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can help the show by subscribing and being part of the show by firing off your Rockies hot takes in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comments section, just like a friend of the show, someone who not necessarily a Rockies fan, but came in, tuned in, and had a nice little kind of thing to say. Blake Carter says, as a Cardinal fan that randomly got this suggested to me, I want to say good luck in everything you're doing, man. Putting in a daily 30-minute video while not having a massive following is so respectable. Good luck in your future endeavors. Well, I appreciate that very much. And hey, we're small but mighty. We got a great crew here of everydayers out here, and I appreciate each and every single one of you for making us your first listen of the day and for finding us on your favorite streaming services or the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Today, we are going to talk about a topic that I talked about in the Affected by Altitude podcast, which, in case you want to go check it out, had a really great conversation with Skylar Timmons there and over there, and talking bigger picture things and especially about the lack of communication and transparency from the front office of the Rockies. And I don't want to rehash and spoil everything, but I'm going to bring some of that conversation over here just to kind of dive in a little bit more on my thoughts and just kind of really back up and enhance my disappointment with the front office and with the lack of communication. We'll dive into that and more into today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we get into everything today, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. So great podcast and had a chance to dive deeper into some of my thoughts and ideas, but Skylar brought me on the show and wanted to talk about the lack of communication and the lack of anything from the front office and pointed out that we've really heard nothing from the Rockies since the season ended. A couple of things here and there, a Clint Turtle podcast appearance and a team blog post or something there. And that's really not how it should be. In fact, it should just add another layer of overall frustration, I think, for Rockies fans, because in reality, we deserve better. Especially when the Rockies just went through another celebratory season, and in that celebratory season, they lost the most amount of games possible. Well, not most amount of games possible, I'm sorry. They lost the most amount of games that they've ever lost in their history. Pretty mixed reviews with some of the celebratory stuff during the season and some big questions and interesting storylines around the Rockies. Other GMs have faced the music. Other GMs have gone and talked to the media. Other front offices have talked to the media. Why are the Rockies not talking? And why are they allowed to just slink away? I don't like the fact that the Rockies seem really good at just fading back and fading into their own self-created irrelevancy to avoid the condemnation that they deserve. I mean, last year was a failure. And we can sit and pat ourselves on the back as front office guys and sit there and say, yeah, you know what? We made some good moves there. We got, we hit on that Nolan Jones trade and, health, of course, if we were healthy, we'd be better. But all in all, the Rockies aren't really, we don't know what's next. How is this team's approach to it going to be to the pitching in free agency this year? Does this team believe that they're going to be aggressive, or will they be aggressive to bring a big pitching name here? And there's a little stuff there. I know Thomas Harding's done some stuff, and there's been some sprinkles, and there's just history and stuff that makes you already confident in, yes, the Rockies aren't going to do anything, but I want to hear it. All in all, I want to hear the plans from the front office. I want to hear the people in charge of making decisions for the Rockies to come out and say what their plans are and why they're doing them. What is their plan for the offseason heading into 2024 to make sure that this Rockies team is on the path back to success? I mentioned this on the podcast there on Affected by Altitude, and what he said aside, Jerry DiPoto is out there answering questions. He didn't have good answers for him. People didn't like the answers, and I think that'll line up. But Bill Schmidt's in a situation where you can at least soften the blow. I mean, there's reasonable questions to ask and reasonable mindsets that it doesn't have to be all just anger and upset and frustration over the 100-loss season. That is allowed to exist, and that should be part of answering or closing out a season and addressing how the team's going to get better. But Bill Schmidt can sit there and talk about the injuries. He can sit there and talk about the trade deadline. There are things that he can deflect and do and shy away from if he doesn't like the direction of a postseason press conference going. But instead we get nothing. We get nothing from Dick and the gang. We haven't even gotten sent via iPad emails out yet. I don't, and when I was recording with Skyler, he said they might have gotten a little something, but it sounded like it was mostly just cobbled together tech mumbo, nothing that was actually real relevant information and what the Rockies are going to do. And that's disappointing. Because throughout, whoa, boy, that was a bad one. I haven't experienced a voice crack like that in a long time. But throughout the Rockies' history and throughout the lulls, the bad times, the really tough seasons that the Rockies have endured, the most frustrating thing is no one knows what the Rockies are doing. No one knows what the Rockies are doing outside the organization when they're looking in and asked to comment or look into and talk about the organization. And no one knows, and no one seems like from within the organization what they're doing because they don't want to talk about it. And there are people out here, we want to know. This next year, this offseason is a crucial point in the journey to capitalizing off of this core and this foundation. And if Dick Monfort wants to be so involved in the baseball, I want to hear more from him. So I say, speak up, Dick. And let's talk about that coming up here in segment number 2, as we continue to question why the Rockies front office has been so quiet and why there hasn't been an acknowledgement of what just happened. The worst statistical season in Rockies history just happened, and we have no debrief. We have no plan moving forward other than to say, hey, look at the good stuff that happened. Look at what we did. That's all apparently they want to tell us, and they can just wipe their hands clean until the winter meetings. That's not how you handle this situation, and it's not how you win back Rockies fans. That's another big part of this, too. Let's dive into all of that coming up in segment number 2 and 3 here on today's episode of Locked on Rockies. But before we do that, got to tell you about FanDuel. FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with winning with a winning $5 money line bet. So if you're feeling confident about the Broncos, well, you might need a little bit of time because the Broncos are on a bye, but maybe you're riding high and you feel like they're going to win next week. Go take the money line on the Broncos, and you can get that $150 in bonus bets if the Broncos end up winning. And you don't have to miss out on all the World Series action going on at FanDuel as well. So check it out. And all the other offers going on at FanDuel.com. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. All the sports, too. If you want to go a little basketball, a little hockey, a little football, I mean, right now, this is one of the few nights that you could probably bet on all 4 sports. So why not? Check it all out at FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Enjoy the NFL season with FanDuel. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, you're in the right spot because Rockies baseball, that's what we talk about here on the Locked On Rockies podcast, on your favorite streaming services, and of course on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show by firing off your Rockies hot takes and letting us know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. Folks, we were talking about the lack of communication so far this offseason from the front office and how that signals kind of a concerning mindset when it comes to really setting a direction for this team. I know this team is confident in its young core. I think the Rockies, and I'm guessing here again, I don't know. I'm just going off of who they played, what the moves they made, and the roster moves. But since they haven't told us a lot, I'm just going off of my thoughts. This team believes highly in that young core and are probably think that they might be closer than everyone else thinks. I think the Rockies might be a little overconfident in this situation when they look at the potential of some of these guys, overlooking the issues and concerns. I mean, there's a lot of young guys, a lot of things you have to hope to go right. And 2024 still allows you the opportunity to give them time and give them experience and get them all to levels while still under control of really ready to rock, really gelling, really understanding and confident in the major league level for 2025. But tell us this. Tell us the plan. Tell us what your hopes are. Tell us what you hope to see from the Rockies in the fall league. Tell us what you hope to see from the guys coming into spring training in next year. Tell us what your approach is going to be to replenish this pitching staff and pitching depth. Face the music and take responsibility for a terrible season last year. Dick Monfort needs to come up and own up to, look at where the Rockies have been post-Arenado trade and post-last postseason appearance. But he won't. And he doesn't have to because it's the Rockies. And they can just continue to be a team that doesn't have to operate like any of the rest of the teams in baseball. They don't have to be someone that have the same sort of plan. They can continue to sit back, throw their hands up, and just hope for and ride the wave of a baseball season and hope the Rockies catch fire and are lucky and another October happens. If Dick Monfort wants to have this much control over his baseball team and this much interference with the day-to-day operations, I want to see more than just emails to season ticket holders and anyone else. I want to see more press conferences from the Colorado Rockies. I want to see this team owning up to its shortcomings and mistakes from last year and telling me in a press conference fashion how they're going to get better. Even if the press conference is full of jargon and normal, just laden, pre-prepared, yada, yada, yada. At least make yourself available. At least open yourself up to questions and at least open yourself up to this team for fans to be able to learn more about this team. The Rockies aren't doing themselves any favors or really doing anything to for baseball fans to encourage them. The Rocky season ended. That's it. It's done. Rockies baseball for the vast majority of people doesn't start again up until probably in the middle of the summer when they're out of school and they got some tickets and they want to go check it out. By not having any postseason wrap up, by not having these press conferences, by not discussing and talking about and diving into plans for this team, you kill off-season interest and momentum. You kill any opportunity to build any sort of a pulse about this team before the next season. And that's a big issue because you really need to start hyping up and building up these guys that you're so excited about and really start having people become familiar and associated with their next generation of Rockies. Because you're going to struggle to get people to be really in the know about this team. The tickets will sell. The stadium will be full. But I'm talking about actual Rockies comprehension. Rockies fan comprehension. Rockies fan interest. True Rockies fandom. And mixed with the teams that they've put out on there, mixed with a crappy history of a front office, and now mixed with silence following a celebratory anniversary season that ended with the most amount of losses in team history. How are you supposed to? I mean, there's no Rockies fans. There's very few Rockies fans out there loud and proud, beating their chest, excited about the Rockies right now. And the Rockies aren't doing themselves any favors by allowing themselves to be tight-lipped and not more transparent about their plans and aspirations and hopes for this team to get better. You don't have to spill all your trade secrets. I'm not asking you to say all your plans. I'm legit just asking for a press conference with classic pre-written PR jargon and just at least opening up the opportunity for you to have to answer tough questions from people that want to know more about this team. Is it going to change? No, it's not. Not anytime soon, at least. There's no pressure to. There's no really reason that they have to. There's frustrations and things that are on your mind, of course, and you'd love to be able to have your media members be able to reach out and go out and speak on your behalf. Or maybe you have fired off an email to Dick Monfort and he's never responded to you. But it's incredibly disappointing that this team won't face the music for the shortcomings and the issues that they had in 2023. The results that happened in 2023, and they won't answer questions about how this team is going to be better. So instead, it's another offseason where we'll be spending saying what if and maybe and this and that. But in reality, the Rockies will make a bunch of smaller level moves or moves of that caliber to try to plug some holes with some aging veterans, some pitchers that are past their prime and looking to continue their career or bounce back, as we read in some reports. Or maybe they won't. Maybe they really believe in their farm system. Maybe they believe in the arms that they have. We don't really know because they won't talk to us. They won't say anything. And in their eyes, they don't have to. And so it's more of this growing frustration on behalf of the Rockies fan. Because I like the Rockies and I want the Rockies to be cool, and the Rockies can be cool. But the people running the Rockies are making it very hard to do so. This team needs to build interest in it. This team needs to build passionate fans. This team needs to make Coors Field not a safe haven for the opposition. But what we're reminded of when the leadership of this team doesn't speak up, and it doesn't solve all the Rockies' problems by them coming and just saying these things. I'm just saying it gives opportunities to learn more about this club the way it operates, the philosophies, and where they want to go. Because there's big trade, there's a big trade potentially looming this offseason with what the approach to Brendan Rodgers. There's just a lot of stuff that you have to keep in mind and you have to consider and are really fascinating about the Rockies this offseason. But we don't get any sort of inside look or any sort of perspective from the organization, or we get little tiny slivers or tidbits or this or that, or we just get nothing. Bunch of pie in the sky, a bunch of just completely we can play 500 ball. We get that level of comment. And it just is unfortunate because I just don't think the Rockies fan gets to sit there and say that their team really commits to making them an informed fan, making them part of the process, making them confident in this team, and giving them reasons to be confident in the team. Because all in all, the season was a pretty lackluster celebration. Let's talk about that coming up in segment number 3. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast, for free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, you're in the right spot. That's what we do around here each and every day. Talk Rockies baseball. You can find us free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, or you can find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show and fire off your Rockies hot takes in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comments section. We've been talking about the lack of communication from the front office for the Rockies this offseason, inspired by my conversation with Skylar Timmons on the Affected by Altitude podcast. If you want more of my thoughts, if you want more Rockies talk, a whole episode dropped earlier today. So if you haven't had a chance to go check it out, I was over there. So thanks to them. And that's what inspired I wanted to dive deeper into this idea, because it just enhances my disappointment as a Rockies fan right now, because it was really cool to be able to convince one of my friends to become a Rockies fan. And then since he's done that, the Rockies have given him nothing to cheer for. All in all. So mixed. I mean, it was cool to see some of the giveaways that the Rockies did and some of the stuff, but I wish the Rockies would really start leaning in and really start celebrating the things that are worth celebrating. And they had the themed weekends, and they had a lot of people come in and they talked about it, and they did them and they had stuff on the broadcast. They did stuff. But 30 years is starting to be a moment where you can kind of feel where you have a little bit of legacy. But I guess when you look at it and you look at some of the younger teams in Major League Baseball and the fact that they've been able to, make it, win some World Series in the case of Miami and Arizona, it's overshadowed by the fact that maybe is it worth celebrating all of that? It is. It's just more examples of the Rockies do a good job of investing in the fan experience. But the Rockies fan experience is something that still needs to be created and something that still needs to be crafted. There's still no real celebration of the Rockies' history throughout the ballpark. There's still no Rockies Museum or Rockies Hall of Fame or Rockies anything that really makes you sit there and able to deep dive and learn a ton about this ball club. And yes, again, not all for some people, not all that interesting. But for me, and for lots of others, there's a lot of storylines that could be told, should be told, highlighted, explained, explored, without embracing that type of stuff and without making the celebration of the Rockies a bit more theatric. Teams and people that come to Coors Field and come to Colorado, they don't get to learn a lot about this team. They just get to continue to only lean on and see the same type of general things that have plagued the Rockies forever. Maybe they remember a couple of names and the Blake Street Bombers, and they just know that Coors Field is the place where the home runs go and yada, yada, yada. But I just think I think last year when we really needed the history to distract us from what was going on and the tough parts of the season and the celebration of 30 years of Rockies baseball mixed in with the terrible season. You needed the nostalgia drip to mix in there with the current day, so you were distracted by what was going on. Maybe it's not convincing enough. Maybe it's not interesting enough. Maybe the history isn't enough to justify a little bit more from the Rockies in their celebration of their history. But I disagree. I think it's a perfect opportunity for the team to last year was the perfect opportunity to start the narrative change about the Rockies while also highlighting the cool stuff about the Rockies. Go through the slog of the season, go to the head after the trade deadline, talk to the media and say we're actually embracing this rebuild, retooling and preparing ourselves to make a real nice run at it in 2025. I'd been all right with that. But in the meantime, we're celebrating 30 years of Rockies baseball. We're bringing in some players, and here's this other cool stuff that we're doing. Just, I don't know. It's a small thing. I know it's not the end of the world. There's a lot bigger fish to fry and a lot bigger issues with the Rockies than celebrating the past and only dwelling in the past. But just something on my mind and something I was thinking about there. But let me know what you're feeling. Let me know how it feels to you, the Rockies fan, to not hear from the front office. Am I making a mountain out of a molehill? Am I looking too much into this? Is it something that we're overthinking? Let me know what you think in the Locked On Rockies comment section on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Folks, that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for joining us here today and for making us your first listen of the day. We really appreciate it. Thank you for finding us on your favorite streaming service and the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Your subscription is the best way to help the show grow. Really, really do appreciate all of you out there that have subscribed. Really, really great to see the show growing here in the offseason. Slowly but surely, small but mighty, you all tune in and check out the show, which I really, really appreciate. So thank you for that. For your second listen of the day, Locked On MLB's got you covered for your World Series coverage and more. But busy time in Colorado sports. So the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs podcast got you covered if you need more Colorado sports coverage. And folks, until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.